Hey folks, happy Thursday. Hope this finds you well. I want to pick up right where I left off from Tuesday, and if you didn't complete all the videos on Tuesday, please do go back and work through them. They're all fairly short, as will today's videos be, just for the sake of um, accessibility and the ease of them uploading a little quicker on my end. Excuse me. But I want to pick up right where I left off, and I'm actually going to be in handling the hard stuff for just a little bit today. And I want to start off on page 37 with this article by John Haleman, and it's titled "America Conquers Pinot Noir, the Holy Grail of Wine." And I think this is a nice place to start, given where we had finished from Tuesday, after I introduced, kind of the distinction of Old World wine, New World wine, but then also kind of focused particularly on this distinction, right? California Pinot with Burgundy Pinot. And remember, Burgundy is a region, and they grow Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. California grows all sorts of grapes, and they've been trying to match what Burgundy has mastered. Okay? And this article speaks to that. Okay? And so on 37, Haleman writes the following. And there's a movie from the early 2000s called Sideways with Paul Giamatti. And his character has a love obsession. Yeah, that's the right phrase. Love obsession with Pinot Noir. The holy grail for U.S. winemakers, always sought, never attainable, has long been Pinot Noir, pronounced Pinot Noir. Okay? This fickle grape makes all the great red grapes of France's Burgundy region. So again, something that I've been claiming on Tuesday and today. Pronounced Pinot Noir, this fickle grape makes all great red wines from the Burgundy region in France. But almost nowhere else has anyone had much success in producing Pinot Noir until now. After generations of failures, winemakers in the U.S., especially Oregon and certain cool regions of California, have finally tamed this Scarlet O'Hara of grapes. During a series of tastings over the past several months involving over 100 Pinots, real resemblances to Burgundy have begun to emerge. There are even several that I can recommend. Now, one thing that I think is interesting here is this idea of and I mean, we can think about this philosophically, right? I mean, we have those things in our lives that, we want to, we have the ideal, right? And we see this kind of conception emerge with Plato. But we have the ideal, right? Like the ideal X, whatever it might be out there, right? The ideal job, the ideal partner, the ideal dog, I don't know, right? But very clearly we all reference the ideal often whether we know it or not. And this happens even in the world of wine, that winemakers and wine styles, try to emulate the ideal. And if we think about it in what we learned on Tuesday, the New World, Old World distinction, right? Being Old World is they've been doing this a lot longer, right? Part of what makes it old is they've got history on you, right? And so in that, it very well might be the case that Burgundian, Burgundy style Pinot Noirs are getting closer and closer, and even I'm sure French would totally back me up on this, are much more close to the ideal of Pinot Noir than Californians and Oregonians. Okay? Because those are the two prominent states in the country that make Pinot Noir, is Oregon and California. Where California and Oregon have been trying to get to that level, have been trying to kind of make that crack it at enough sameness, enough consistency, enough quality that it matches the precedent that has been set in and with the most noble places that make Pinot. In Oregon, the vintages to look for, lists here. In California, yada, yada, yada. Um, U.S. Pinot Noir success began in Paris when a Pinot from 1975 of Oregon beat French Burgundies at a blind tasting called The Judgment of Paris by the press. And we're actually going to watch a movie next Thursday called Bottle Shock, and it's going to deal with The Judgment of Paris. So I'm excited to watch that film with you all. I mean, however we watch it, whether in the classroom or you watch it on your own. Most startled were the judges, who were all French, right? And again, the video next week is going to do a nice job of showcasing some of the pretentiousness of French wine culture, and you have these outsiders coming in, yada yada yada. Can they make the same wine? Can they make better wine? Yada yada yada. Since then, Oregon Pinots have been so hot that California wineries over 1,000 miles away have imported Oregon grapes for their Pinots. Isn't that sane? Insane. Perhaps. American winemakers, after several bankruptcies and many broken hearts, learned that Pinot Noir does well only in cool, isolated microclimates. When you find some good Pinot grapes, you'd better buy them. And again, this idea that, and I think I made mention of this on Tuesday, but when you start kind of really diving into where various grapes are grown in various wine regions are across the world, usually there's similarities. And I'm even going to flip it even more. And let's just stay with Pinot Noir because we're on the subject. So Pinot Noir, again, grows in cool, wet, damp climates. Okay? That it's not going to thrive in Idaho, especially in the summer. It's too hot. Okay? But in various places in California, various places in Oregon, and then in France, there are these microclimates that are really conducive for Pinot Noir because it is a finicky and difficult grape to grow and produce. Just like that is the case in the northern hemisphere, that is also the case in the southern hemisphere. So you flip it, right? And you have various places in the southern hemisphere that are conducive for growing Pinot Noir, right? And it mirrors where that is longitudinally, which is kind of cool, right? That there are certain places, in Argentina and Chile that will grow and produce Pinot Noir, right? And if you flipped it, it would be similar to where that occurs, longitudinally in the northern hemisphere, right? I've also had Pinot Noir from New Zealand. I've had Pinot Noir from South Africa. And I mean, there are differences in taste, but there's also similarities because they come from, the original, kind of the original same grapevine. So I'll pick up in the next video continuing on with the article, but I think that's just, again, kind of an interesting thing to consider is that climate really matters here. Okay? And I mean, more than just climate. Climate, soil type, sun exposure. Right now in the southern hemisphere, that's kind of getting to the end of their summer, and their picking season for grapes is mid-March, I think, mid-March, early April. Similarly, in the northern hemisphere, for most wineries, they start picking grapes in late August throughout September and October. So, anyway, more in the next video.